Welcome to Drew's Storytime. If you enjoy falling asleep here, you're very welcome to subscribe for more gentle stories and peaceful meditations. Whether you're sitting or lying down, just allow yourself to get comfortable and let tonight's story carry you gently into rest. Tonight's story is The Second Cup of Tea. The kitchen was already dim when the kettle clicked off. The sound arrived without urgency, a small mechanical certainty that marked the end of heating rather than the beginning of anything else. Alan stood by the counter for a moment longer than necessary, his hand resting lightly on the worktop, listening to the faint settling sounds that followed. The house felt still in the way it often did late in the evening, when rooms no longer expected to be used again. He poured the water slowly. Steam rose and thinned almost immediately, leaving behind the familiar scent of tea that spread quietly through the kitchen. Alan watched the surface darken as the bag steeped, the color deepening without effort or drama. He waited until it felt right, then removed the bag and set it aside, careful not to rush the movement. The mug warmed his hands. He carried it into the living room and sat down, placing it on the table beside him before taking the first sip. The chair accepted his weight easily, its shape familiar enough that he did not need to adjust himself. The lamp by the sofa cast a low, steady light, leaving the rest of the room in shadow. Alan sipped the tea slowly. The day he was leaving behind had been ordinary, though it had carried its share of small decisions and quiet interruptions. Nothing had gone wrong. Nothing had demanded more attention than expected. Still, there had been a faint restlessness beneath it all, a feeling that the evening had not yet quite settled. The house had grown noticeably quieter over the past few years, though Alan had never quite decided whether he liked it that way. He finished the cup without noticing when he began. The mug sat empty on the table, its warmth fading gradually. Alan remained where he was, hands resting loosely in his lap, aware of the quiet, but not unsettled by it. The television remained off. His phone lay untouched where he had left it earlier. The room offered no particular next step. After a moment, he stood and returned to the kitchen. The kettle still held water. Alan noticed this without surprise. He had filled it more than he needed, a habit formed years earlier and never quite adjusted. He reached for the switch and hesitated, his hand hovering just above it. There was no reason to make more tea. He had already finished one cup. He turned the kettle on anyway. The sound of heating water filled the kitchen again, familiar and contained. Alan leaned against the counter and waited, his thoughts moving slowly, unanchored from any particular task. The repetition did not feel indulgent. It felt reassuring. When the kettle clicked off a second time, the sound felt subtly different, not louder or softer, but more settled, as though the act itself had been confirmed. Alan poured the water into the mug again, watching the steam rise and fade. This time, he allowed the tea to steep a little longer before removing the bag, letting the color deepen just slightly more. He carried the second cup back into the living room. As he sat down, he noticed the room felt subtly altered. The light seemed warmer. The quiet felt less expectant. Repeating the small ritual had shifted something, not in the space itself, but in how he occupied it. Alan sipped the tea and felt his shoulders ease. The second cup did not feel like an extension of the first. It felt complete on its own. as though it had been waiting to be made. The warmth spread through his hands and into his chest, grounding him in the moment without asking for attention. He realized then that the evening had found its pace. The repetition had not been unnecessary. It had been an answer, though the question had never needed to be spoken. The second cup was not about thirst. It was about permission. Alan sat quietly, the mug resting in his hands, and allowed the rest of the evening to unfold without instruction. The house seemed to respond with a deeper quiet. He noticed it not as a change in sound, but as a shift in texture. The air felt less hollow, as though the simple act of repeating the ritual had given the evening something to settle into. He remained seated, cradling the mug, letting the warmth move through him without hurry. The tea tasted slightly different this time, not stronger in any obvious way, but rounder, as if the flavor had chosen to linger. Alan took smaller sips, spacing them out, allowing the pauses between them to become part of the experience rather than something to fill. He thought about how often repetition was framed as failure. Doing something again was usually treated as a sign the first attempt had not been enough. Another try, another correction, another effort to get it right. Sitting there with the second cup, Alan felt none of that weight. The repetition felt deliberate, even though he had not planned it. It felt like choosing comfort without needing to justify it. He remembered other evenings shaped by similar small decisions. Times when he had reread the same page of a book without moving forward. When he had listened to the same piece of music twice. Not because he had missed something, but because he wanted to remain where it had placed him. Those moments had never felt wasteful. They had felt like rest. The kettle cooled quietly in the kitchen. Alan could picture it there without getting up. The metal settling, the water inside losing heat by degrees too small to notice. The image grounded him, linking the rooms together through familiarity rather than movement. He leaned back slightly and let his gaze rest on the far wall. The shadows cast by the lamp had softened further, their edges blurring into one another. The room no longer felt like a place where something might happen. It felt like a place where something had already arrived. Alan finished the second cup more slowly than the first. When he set the mug down, the faint restlessness from earlier had gone. The evening no longer asked to be shaped. It had found its form through repetition rather than intention. He stayed seated for a while longer. The quiet did not press in. It held. Thoughts came and went without attaching themselves to urgency. The events of the day felt distant enough to observe without revisiting. The next day remained abstract, its details unformed and therefore unthreatening. Alan realized, with gentle clarity, that the second cup had not been about tea at all. It had been about allowing himself to linger, about recognizing that rest sometimes arrived through sameness rather than novelty. That comfort did not need to be earned through productivity or progress. Eventually, he stood and carried the mug back to the kitchen. The act felt like closure rather than interruption. He rinsed it and placed it on the drying rack, where it rested among other familiar objects. The kettle sat beside it, quiet now, its role completed without fuss. Alan turned off the kitchen light and moved toward the bedroom. The house followed him into stillness, each room settling as he passed through. When he lay down, sleep did not arrive immediately, but it no longer felt distant. It hovered close, waiting for the moment when thought loosened enough to allow it in. He closed his eyes and let the evening finish on its own terms. The repetition had done its work. Morning light entered gradually, filtering across the floor and up the walls without insisting on attention. The house held the quiet of a night that had ended without disturbance. Alan woke naturally, his body responding to the shift in light rather than an alarm. He lay still for a moment, noticing how he felt. There was no sharp divide between sleep and waking, no sense of being pulled abruptly into the day. The rest he'd found the night before lingered, not as drowsiness, but as ease. The memory of the second cup surfaced briefly, not as an image, but as a trace of warmth. Alan rose and moved through the morning without hurry. He made breakfast, opened the window slightly, and let the air move through the kitchen. The sounds of the neighborhood arrived gradually. A distant door closing, footsteps passing outside. The world resumed its pace without asking him to match it immediately. The kettle sat where he had left it. Alan filled it and turned it on, the action familiar enough to require no thought. When it clicked off, he poured the water and prepared a single cup this time. He smiled faintly at that, not because it marked restraint, but because the choice felt natural. He carried the mug to the table and sat. The tea tasted as it always did, comforting, unremarkable, sufficient. Alan did not linger over it the way he had the night before. That moment had passed, and it did not ask to be repeated. The understanding felt reassuring rather than disappointing. He finished the cup and rinsed the mug. As he moved through the rest of the morning, he noticed how the rhythm of the previous evening had followed him forward. Tasks unfolded without friction. Movements felt unforced. The repetition he had allowed himself had left a quiet imprint, shaping the day without directing it. Alan paused once at the window and looked out. The street looked ordinary in the morning light. Cars passed. People moved through their routines. Nothing distinguished this day from any other. He felt no need to mark it as special. The calm he carried did not require recognition. He returned to what he had been doing. The second cup had been a small thing. It had not solved anything or altered the course of his life. It had simply allowed him to pause twice instead of once, to accept comfort without justification. That permission remained, available whenever it might be needed again. By the time the day fully took hold, the evening before had settled into the background. Not forgotten, but integrated. Alan moved forward with the quiet understanding that rest could be chosen in small, ordinary ways, and that repetition, when welcomed, could become a form of kindness rather than excess. The kettle cooled. The house filled with daylight. The night completed itself without leaving anything undone. The warmth remained, quiet and unremarkable, waiting patiently for the next evening that might need it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Thank you for supporting the channel.